got another interesting information-packed afternoon. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? So, thankfully, you won't hear any more from me for the time being. I'm about to hand over to our technical tax manager. So, Martin is going to introduce you to some really, really mind-blowing stuff. Martin Nicol.
Thanks, David. So, as David said, I'm Martin Nicol. I'm the Technical Tax Manager at Accountants Plus. I take care of anything tax related at all, be that individuals, companies or charities as well. So I've got a few things that we're going to have a wee look at today. That's the kind of the main topics that I'm looking to cover. Just a wee bit about Gifted, what that is, as well as how it goes about claiming it, and a few areas that to do with small donations claims as well. We can cover them. VAT is one of the big ones. There's a lot of pitfalls in VAT. It can apply across the board to quite a lot of things. So it's worth having a wee look at that, as well as looking at the difference between trading profits, charitable profits, or charitable surplus. What's the difference between the two there, and how that impacts the tax returns as well. So first one I've got is on Gifted. So as I'm sure you're aware, Gifted is claimed on the donations that the charity would receive, and it's at a rate of 25 pence in every pound there, so it is quite worthwhile for the charity. It only applies to donations received from individuals, so if you do receive a donation from a company, then you don't get that Gifted relief there. You must have that declaration coming in from the individual, just to say that they've paid enough income tax during their time, and from there you're then able to include that within the claim. There is time limits to do with the claims. You need to keep that declaration for 6 years after the most recent donation was received as well. So having a system to try and keep track of the donations is important. And all the kind of submissions there, they go through to HMRC online. So if you've got software to manage that, the donations tracking there, that would help with doing that submission there as well. HMRC are turning around the Gifted claims fairly quickly. You're normally seeing money coming in from about 4 weeks after a claim goes in, which compared to some of the other taxes, I can tell you that's quick for HMRC doing anything at the moment. Any records of the actual claim itself going in, you still need to keep them for 2 years as well. So there is quite a lot of kind of time limits on things, making sure that you have got everything in a row. So it's really just having a system there to record everything as it should be. I've mentioned the Gifted small donation scheme as well. That allows for, if there's any kind of fundraising done and there's cash donations or contactless card donations of up to £30, if they're being claimed, you might not have the information in regards to every individual donor, particularly if it's like a collection that's been made at any point. You're not going to have names and addresses and tax information for everybody there. So what that allows you to do is the charity can make a normal Gifted claim during the year, but under this scheme can claim a maximum of £2,000 of Gifted back from HMRC without having all that infinite detail there. You must still be making normal Gifted claims to do that, and it must be 10 times the limit. So to get the £1,000 of small donations back, you do need that Gifted of £100 there as well. Depending on the type of charity, there is limits. The limits can be increased a wee bit, so you can, rather than that £2,000, there's the option of potentially getting up to £8,000 back. Again, depending on how the circumstances are of the cash donations coming in. You do need to keep some records to do with that. You need to keep track of where the donations came from, the total cash, how that was transferred into the bank. Normally you're going to have that within your bookkeeping records anyway. However, you just need to keep that separate so it can back up that claim if HMRC were ever to ask about it. Moving on to the VAT side of things. This is one of the main topics. The biggest thing about VAT is it's trying to understand what is a business transaction and what is a non-business transaction. So if the VAT is only concerned with the business transactions, whereas a lot of the charitable activities may fall under that non-business. The tax rules are based on the type of transaction that happens. So because you've got charitable status there, doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be some sort of VAT exemption there. It's the underlying transaction there. And they look at it, there's like a two-stage test that they apply to it. One of them is there any goods and services being delivered in return for money or any other kind of consideration at all? So is there any kind of sale happening, or is it just money being given as a donation with nothing coming back in return? Or is the supply being made with a view to actually obtaining an income from it? Now, that doesn't actually need to be for profit. As long as you're getting an income which you're going to subsidise the cost even, that can then fall into these rules as well. So it doesn't actually need to kind of, as I say, result in a surplus coming back. Every activity that's undertaken by the charity is reviewed independently of each other as well. So you need to segregate each thing so that when you're looking at it, is it a business activity? The VAT rules, as I say, apply regardless of the type of transaction organisation that's there. So if it's a charity, if it's a limited company, if you're a sole trader, the VAT rules are the same. If it is one of the business activities, the VAT rules, they're complicated. It means VAT might apply. But to do that, you might need VAT registration. And again, it depends on how much of that activity you're doing as well. Non-business activities, they're going to be outside the scope of VAT. I've put on the slide there a few different kind of rates of that, because one of the things that commonly comes up is people don't understand the difference between the different types, especially when it goes down to the difference between what would zero rated be, what was exempt, what's outside the scope. There's no VAT on them, people just call them no VAT, but when you're looking at the types of income, it has a very big difference. If there was income being generated from a fundraising event, that would then be exempt from VAT. If something is exempt, it means that you can't reclaim the VAT back on any expenditure that's incurred to do with that as well. If there was a zero rated supply, however, it actually means that VAT is being applied at a percentage of zero, so therefore you can get VAT back as well. So if there was any costs incurred in making that sale, making that supply, you would get the VAT back. If it's outside the scope, there's no VAT implications at all. It's not within the VAT rules and it's completely outside. The 5% and 20% ones, that's the ones you'll commonly incur on any kind of expenditure. And one of the ones, like particularly the 5%, you might see that on utility bills. Any kind of charities which are paying the heat and light, the gas, the electricity. Normally for a business it could be 20%, but with the charity there is the charitable non-business activities qualifies for 5% relief on that. So you do get that reduction there. One of the other ones I've got is advertising costs. With a charity, there is reliefs available so that the advertising costs, again, there's no VAT being incurred on them. They become zero rated. That's good for the business providing them because they still get the VAT back on their overheads and the costs of providing the services. However, as a charity, it means you're not suffering that as well. So it makes that wee bit, the cost of making the advertisements a wee bit cheaper. That also applies if there's any costs incurred with the collection of donations. So if you're getting envelopes pre-printed with branding on it for a particular appeal or anything like that, if you're getting letters pre-printed again so that it's to do with an appeal, particularly to get donations in, again, they go under that zero rated, whereas if it's for anything else, standard blank envelope, that's on the 20% VAT. So there's one of the things with VAT, there is a lot of rules and sometimes they don't make 100% sense either. So even myself, and I always go back to the guidance and check. So we're always here to help if there is any kind of questions at all particular to do with VAT. On the fundraising activities, normally if you're doing events, if it's not a fundraising activity, there's VAT implications in doing that. However, the charities do have exemptions available to them when there is a fundraising activity happening. So the sale of tickets for an event, for example, they would become exempt from VAT. If it's a social event that isn't particularly held out as fundraising, it's not clearly advertised as being fundraising for the charity or a particular purpose, there would be VAT on it, just as if any other business would. So again, we're coming back to, it's not the charitable status there, it's the fact it's a fundraising event at that point, and it's different from any other event that's kind of happening. There's also, that exemption does extend out a little bit. So if there's the sale of commemorative brochures, they might be zero rated, but again, they fall under this exemption as well if they're not. Sale of advertising space within a brochure, if you're putting anything like that together, again, it comes under the fundraising activities banner, as well as items that are potentially sold at the event, such as t-shirts or anything along those kind of lines. They're exempt if they're at the event. Selling them after the event, it becomes a normal piece of clothing and potentially could have VAT on it. So the rules do get a wee bit complicated there as well. To prevent businesses and charities being upset with each other, I think there's a rule that says the fundraising events, there is a limit to how many fundraising events you can hold at any one place during a year, and that number is 15. So you can do it fairly often. However, you do run the risk of, if you were doing something every week, say if you were holding a coffee morning or whatever else, if you're doing that once a week, we then look at it and go, if it was a coffee morning, is that you running a cafe if it's happening too often? And that's when the rules start going flicking back and you're going, is that into a business? Or is it still a charitable activity that's happening at that point? The limit of the 15 events, if it's a small scale event, which means that you're getting less than £1,000 of income from it, that's before any costs are coming off it. That's not included within the rules there as well. That's got a kind of small event exemption on that as well. I've put another few events up there as well, just to kind of describe the types of things that would be classed as this. So fireworks display, sporting events, a dinner, anything like that. It's fairly wide ranging in terms of the type of events that would be covered by the fundraising exemptions there. Moving away a bit from VAT is profits and surplus. So if there is income which has been, as I say, derived from a charitable purpose and it's meeting the criteria that's set within the government document that Fiona was talking about, saying that's exactly what the charity's for, the income which it derives from there, benefiting the community, that is exempt from corporation tax, so there's no tax payable on there. And I've got there as well, like a museum, like here, if there's a cafe inside, if it's benefiting the people that are then using that museum, chances are we can exempt their profits as well. There is different things that would happen. So if you were running a cafe as a particular business within that, and it wasn't particularly tied into the museum, it was just something that they thought it'd be good to go back, chances that it could potentially be classed as trading as well. Again, it's getting that line. There's a fine line between the kind of the rules there and making sure that it does qualify into the right areas there. The small trading rules do apply, so if it is a small amount, again, there's limits on there. £8,000 is a small trading allowance as long as the charity is generating an income of £32,000 itself. That would then be under that small trading limit, so it would be ignored for the purposes of kind of corporation tax and that kind of thing. That does extend up to 80,000 when the charity's got overall income of 320. What we commonly see is charities do set up trading subsidiaries. Now, what that allows the charity to do is keep any activities which potentially are taxable. Potentially, the HMRC could look and go, actually, you're running that as a business. It's not a charity. From there, you can keep that within a subsidiary trading company, which is a separate limited company that the charity owns in full. And from there, when the profits are donated up from that subsidiary into the company, you don't have any taxable profits left at that point. It is allowed as a deduction within the accounts. and from there, you're not paying any corporation tax on that profit made there. There is time limits for the donation, so the cash donation must be made into into the charity, the parent charity, within 9 months of the end of that financial year. So it normally would be done fairly quickly after it, once the accounts have been prepared. A little bit of admin work. Each charity has the requirement to fill in returns to HMRC. If HMRC ask for one, you need to send in the CT600 with the supplementary pages. If HMRC doesn't ask for one, as long as you've got no trading profits to declare on that return, then if HMRC's not asked for it, you don't need to give them it. Sometimes they let you off with, say, we understand, you can speak to them, say, well, you're a charity, there's no profits there. As long as activities don't change, they won't send your return out for a couple of years, and it just gets you off that administrative burden there. If they do ask for one and you don't submit one, or it happens to be submitted late, which again, that's within the 12 months after the end of the year, they do charge penalties, which start at £100 and they go up from there depending on how long it sits as outstanding. There's not too much else on the VAT side and the tax, so if anyone has any questions at all. Yeah?
See if you were providing training within the charity, like you were putting training money back into the charity for a project.
Yeah.
How would that process?
So the training could potentially be a business activity, because at that point you're looking at it saying, well, you're providing that service and supply for money there. With that, it potentially is worth looking at the trading subsidiary there, just to kind of keep that separate, and with the profits going back into the main charity at that point, and as long as it's been used for the charitable purpose, then you would then get the tax exemption from that, so it would fall outside the corporation tax rules. Yeah.
So this kind of ties in with VAT on schools. Right?
Okay.
If you have a charity which is part of your core, service,
Yeah.
Includes education, it's not clear to any of us whether VAT would apply.
No, I think it depends on the type of education potentially there. So with that one, it would be rules I would need to go back and have a look into, just in that little bit more detail, because when it comes into some of there's a few areas of VAT where the rules do come back, and I do need to go back to the guidance, just because education being one of them, there's so many ifs and buts that I do need to go back and
It's very,
check.
very uncertain, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Yes,
That's changing next year.
yes, it will do. Yes, yeah.
I ran an independent training company for years, and the employability type contracts and support was it was valuable, but the skills, as long as they were certificated, through a further education, all them was zero.
Yep.
So I think that's the same actually for training within. As long as there's skills, certification, then you can get zero rating.
Yes.
We never spoke much about the reversal VAT. I work for Charities International,
Yes.
and we have to do that.
Yes. So with so that's the VAT incurred when you're buying goods from overseas. No.
This charity is it's a membership organisation.
Okay.
But they also do training events both in the UK and outside the UK.
Right.
And the put my head in.
Yes, understandably. The VAT rules are based on activities which happen, like the UK VAT rules would be the activities that happen within the UK. When you're then starting to trade or do anything overseas, there is different VAT rules that can apply to each individual country, which there is a few schemes that kind of help with that to try and mitigate some of the burden on it. However, after the changes from Brexit, etc., some of that did become a bit more complicated as well. Just because you did at one point have options of registering for European schemes, whereas because we're outside of that, it does make it a wee bit more complicated now. Yes.
How would it work around construction? If you were constructing stuff for a charity, you had to contractors on site, for CIS, corporation tax, etc. How would that work?
Yeah, so the VAT on construction, there is particular rules to do with if the building is for relevant charitable purposes, and it means that there is reductions available for that. It would really look at exactly who's doing the construction work, and the type of entity that is, and if it was a charity that's building it themselves, or if they're kind of subcontracting it out, the rules on that would be different.
So if you're not VAT registered, at what point would you know if you should be?
Yeah, so with that, the kind of the rules on the VAT registration still remains at the 85,000, or it's up to 90,000 now. 90 it changed to. So when you've got the £90,000 of turnover, that would then be falling within the within the scope of VAT. So you're not looking at the kind of donations income and things like that. But with the type of trade, it's that the 90,000 limit that we'd need to have a look at. Yeah.
I'm involved with a charity that makes grants to other charities. Are there any particular pitfalls we need to be aware of in making those grants?
So for the ones, I would say it's unlikely, because the provision of grants would fall within that kind of charitable purposes. It wouldn't be seen as a business transaction at that point. So as long as it's happening for the charitable purposes, then it's probably going to be outside. Okay, doke.
No more for no more? Okay, Martin, thank you very much. So I'm delighted that we now have one of your own. So I'm really, really grateful that Stephen Sweeney from Vaslan has agreed to come along and share some information regarding fair funding. So while Stephen just makes his way up here, I'll just see if I can organise his presentation.
Here it was, David.
Hey, look at that.
Look at you go. You're a pro.
Let me know when you need your videos and I'll get them.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Stephen Sweeney from Vaslan. And first of all, just want to say thanks to Accountants Plus. I think this is really good that you've put on this event. You know, naturally, I think with any of these things where the sector's engaging with an accountant or an auditor or anybody from the business community, there's a legitimate around generating relationships and creating future opportunities. But equally, there's been a really healthy bit of information sharing here, which is really valuable. And I think it'd be great if more firms were doing things like this. I think it's really positive, and I'm sure everybody will be taking things away from today. But all the challenges that have been spoken about, all the things that from a financial management point of view, or from a governance point of view, or from just a day-to-day challenge of running your own organisation, one of the fundamental things that would make that a hell of a lot easier is if, in particular, the public sector would adhere to fair funding principles for the sector. There's so many, everything comes back to not getting money in a timely manner, or it not being, how we do what we do being as important as what we do. So wanted just really to accept the kind invite and take the opportunity just to share a wee bit about what we're doing in South Lanarkshire. Seeing we're in the beautiful south, we're in Hamilton, what a place, what a time to be alive, and just share a wee bit about what we're up to. As the TSI, we're here to support all the other local organisations. Some of you are here, and some have actually been involved in my way to speak about today. But just very briefly, not going to bore you with this, but Vaslan, who they are and what we do lots of things to support volunteers, governance with organisations, so some of the things that we've been speaking about this morning, supporting organisations to be more enterprising, diversify their income, try and be a voice for the sector collectively, and we're a grant maker as well, so distributed over 2.3 million locally, and within the limitations that we then maybe have from the funder, try our best to practice what we preach in terms of how we distribute those funds as well. Won't again bore you with this, but I'm very conscious that not everybody here will be from an organisation in South Lanarkshire. Your organisation might work across a region or nationally, or you might be place-based in another area. You'll have a TSI locally. Now, I think with anything that's not universal and it's local, there's always a bit of a postcode lottery, some are better than others, etc. But there's a shared resource there for you to tap into. I would encourage you to have a relationship with if you don't already. But as a network, there's a huge amount of stuff going on to support the sector, in particular local grassroots organisations. But I want to speak about the Keep the Beat Alive campaign. So this is around where over 100 local organisations have came together, basically went, look, enough is enough. This ain't good enough. If we're really wanting to support our communities, support the people of South Lanarkshire, fundamentally some things need to change. So I'm going to attempt to, have I got your laptop here? Here we go. This is where I might need your help. No, I think we're all right.
Well done.
Thank you.
You've taken my job. Do you see that?
We're a great team, by the way. Look at us. Right,
Phone was switched off.
a wee video. Is that?
Awesome. This is a third sector organisation
Hey,
at the heart of our community, providing vital services and support to those in need.
From Blantyre Soccer Academy to Grow 73,
Healthy and active, to citizens advice bureaus, we keep our communities strong and resilient.
but our value often goes unrecognised, and we are too often shortchanged by outdated funding strategies.
We need smarter funding that acknowledges the complexity of our work and ensures our survival.
And it has to be about more than warm words, because we can be a brilliant collaborative partner with the public sector.
That means more meaningful engagement with the public sector, locally and especially nationally, that translates into real action, and support is essential.
Together, we must cut through the red tape and bureaucracy to make a real difference where it is needed most in our communities.
Your support is crucial in keeping this heartbeat going.
Here's a reminder of our three big asks.
Recognise our value
Be smarter about funding.
and meaningfully engage with us.
Will you stand with us to ensure that South Lanarkshire's third sector has the resources and support we need to not only survive but thrive?
Will you keep the beat alive?
This is really good. Oh no! Oh, we'd all love to be on the beach, you know, with me, look at that, look at the swimming pools. I'm always in there, look at that. So, in behind all the stuff about financial management today, governance, the day-to-day run of your organisation, tax, gift aid, everything there. Every organisation's there to deliver their services or create social community cohesion or whatever it is they're there to do. And ultimately it's about that impact on people. You know, sometimes we're so far, we've got to remember that's ultimately what we're all here to do. And we've all got our various roles to play. So these 100 organisations came together. Enough's enough. We need to do something. We need, you know, even just the way that we're trying to be heard isn't sufficient. We're not influencing the local, but especially national policy shapers and decision makers about what's actually needed at a grassroots level, what our communities actually need. This just ain't cutting it. So we launched this at the end of April. The first phase was very much about join in with the Essential Sector campaign that the SCVO have ran, which is kind of leading to the fair funding, and I'll get to that point shortly. But really trying to tackle, local councillors, MSPs, MPs, and try to get them to understand about these four fair funding principles and these three kind of main asks. And everything not always just being as a kind of blanket over Scotland, but what about every local patch? There's lots of, the vast majority of the sector's local. Where's that voice in a lot of the kind of decision making? This is the kind of second stage now, which we're live in September to January. It's now very much about storytelling, supporting organisations to tell their story, supporting people with a lived experience to tell their story, and bringing it back to what's the enabler? It's the fair funding principles, allowing to make it happen. And there's an event at the Scottish Parliament in the middle of January, where hopefully at that point the Scottish budget will be live, the consultation will be out there, and I guess that ultimately the question of has this campaign been successful, even within the current economic climate, if in this Scottish budget or the next Scottish budget, the two prior to the general election, if we start to see some of these fair funding principles coming into the Scottish budget, then I think we've got to say this has made a kind of contribution to some of that success. But what is fair funding? Right? So at a local level, these are the kind of 4 fair funding principles. I'll just give a wee bit about this and happy to take questions or chat. And this is available, there's a version available on the TSI Network website as well. And either you'll be like, yeah, maybe stating the obvious, yeah, these things wouldn't be great, or be things that might be worth being more aware of, so that when you're maybe trying to influence stakeholders, where, you know, as a wider, broader sector, we're all hitting decision makers, policy shapers with the same messaging. So a strategic investment approach. The public sector, in terms of public sector reform, so we can't keep doing what we're doing. You know, we've not got the same resources. We need to innovate. We need to do things in a different way. Well, aye, yeah. But we need to actually do that. That doesn't involve looking in the way and being turkeys voting for Christmas. That actually involves us talking to each other, working with other sectors, working with other industries. And I'm not saying that people aren't trying that, but the pace, it's clearly, you've got all the Audit Scotland reports, whatever, it's not happening at the pace, right? And one of the fundamental things we should actually be doing here is to recognise that there's lots of organisations place-based, deep-rooted in their neighbourhoods, in their communities. They're working with these people, know what services they need. You know, and actually, it's not a cheaper, there actually is potentially a best value option for working in partnership, working deeper, more collaboratively with local third sector organisations to deliver services. Of course, not statutory functions, but everything else in that middle space. And then there being appropriate, kind of transparent funding, procurement, commissioning processes to suit. And when we do have that, there's got to be, you know, we can't just hide behind the procurement rules. There's got to be, you know, adequate guidance. There's got to be, you know, the discussion around about the pre-tender engagement to make sure we shape services correctly. There's got to be sensible timescales where we're all going, yeah, that feels achievable based on all the different pressures that we have. No asked to do something in 2 minutes or something trundling on forever. There has to be, you know, real transparency around how the decision's going to be made and appropriate weightings round about that. And when we come to adequate and secure funding, it's like, well, yeah, this is what every organisation needs, right? But multi-year funding so that you can plan, you know, inflationary uplifts, you know, the concept of core funding would be nice. You know, all those things in there, and then just make sure it's proportionate, that actually you're getting on to deliver the services that you need to deliver, and you're not spending a disproportionate amount of time reporting about things that you've done and backdating. So right now, I guess what we're doing at a local level, working with the community planning partners, working with the council, working with NHS Lanarkshire, really to benchmark as a local public sector, how are we doing? You know, out of these principles, and there are some good practice. What are we doing well? What could we be doing better? When's it Scottish Government's fault? When's it UK Government's fault? And then can we just one version of the truth and let's talk about it instead of playing each other off against each other. And then at a national level, like we said, you know, I'm sure many of you responded to the national consultation recently around about fair funding, so we've got that local voice in the mix. And like I said, hopefully over the next, whether it's this one or the next Scottish budget, if we start to see some of these fair funding principles come through, then in little old South Lanarkshire, we've maybe made a wee contribution. And I'm just going to finish off by playing one other wee video, and the reason why I'm playing it, look at this guy in his shorts, is that we need to remember that it all comes back to people. Again, all the financial management, the governance, all the day-to-day run, we're all here to deliver services, we're all here to make a difference in people's lives, and this was just one of the wee videos involved in the campaign, just to bring it back to people, which we're all about.
I always joke with the people that work here, it's almost as if there's magic around it, because the second you walk up that road and you pass the first gate, it's how I'd imagine like a little kid in Disneyland. Before Darcy's, round about lockdown, I was struggling really badly with mental health. That is one of the things that struck me at the first day I was up here. It's almost like you step in and you can it's like all of that weight's being taken off.
My name's Laura and I am the founder of Let's Talk Fertility and Birth. When you have trauma, it needs to be dealt with. If it doesn't, that can just live on with you forever. It can affect your mental health if it's something that just lingers there. And I just kind of felt like I could help people to overcome that. We've had so many people who have gone on to have successful pregnancies, and I believe it's because we've helped them to manage the thoughts and the processes that they're going through at that particular time.
The young people find it good here because they're not judged by either the animals or the staff. The labels they've had are left at the gate, and they're given an opportunity to just maybe find some peace. that they've not had for a long time because of their mental health condition. They start to re-engage, and that's the most important thing.
There's birds, there's frogs hiding under little rocks, there's the horses just wondering where their hay nets are. There's so much more to life than worrying about things. I went from someone that would sit in my room all day to now I've applied and been accepted to South Lanarkshire College, and I'm starting in August, which is mind-boggling because all of it can be attributed to Darcy's, because it's not like I just woke up one day and I'm like, right, I'm going to get better. It's being up here has changed my life. It's changed me for the better.
So behind the numbers on the spreadsheet, behind the... Oh no! Doing well, innit? Doing so well, David.
I know. I'm awful glad.
I know. I should have accepted your help, you know. So behind the numbers on the spreadsheet, behind some of the governance arrangements, behind all the various great bits of information that has been shared today, there's organisations like yourselves try to deliver services, try to help people on a day-to-day basis. And I guess hopefully for David, for Accountants Plus, for other firms, hopefully there's that appreciation that these are the enablers for many organisations to actually be able to be, you know, as good an organisation as possible and to be able to present a really good version of themselves at audit time, etc. So that's me, spiel over. That was okay, happy to take any questions. Thank you. Stunned silence. There we go. Done my job. You get any questions?
I'm gathering my...
Hi. Hello.
You probably met me.
We have, aye, at the launch night.
Yes, at launch night of the project, yeah. I think what we've been doing lately is quite good. We are known for innovation, as you probably be aware, given the state of the place and what you've seen.
Great venue.
But what we're still finding is especially with regard to capital projects, it's trying to get a joined up, project together.
Yep.
Because projects, there's a lack of understanding with projects that take time within SLC, within the funders, that we're asked to get through quotes, etc., etc. And we do all the due diligence as managers of these charities, and then we only get 30 days on the quotes. We put in for the funding, and then you say to them, look, we're actually planning for next year because we have events booked and we have things, and that's where our capital comes from. And we will be a tripartite investor in the building. So you'll put money in, we want you to put money in, and then we get another funder to put money in, and then we can book people in. Now that is still failing mixed still, because they're saying, well, we'll give you so much money, we won't do the project. And then they'll say it has to be spent by, because we have obviously they'll be budgeting services as well, I understand. But how do you plan? How do you come across this? We've got to plan a project. For instance, I'm working with a building like this where it's limestone. You can't put up the one. It's got to wait till in the summer because it will go off. So I've got to book in stonemasons, but I can't afford to book in stonemasons. I don't have the money to do it. So the time I get to booking them in, they're going on to the next job. Is there any work being done to try and approach the whole prospect of a sort of capital project that's slightly bigger? The different funders will be happy to put in money as a global picture. Is there any work being done?
Wouldn't that be incredible, happy to have that conversation with you away from here and whether we can have it with local authority and others. I mean, I think in general, so many decisions at the moment are set based on we need to set a balanced budget. It's not about people, place or planet, it's about the numbers, which is legitimate. Right? However, there's got to be a balance, there's got to be a human element to it. Never seen so many funders in my life pausing and reviewing their strategy. You'll be coming across this now, but imagine other parts of the country did that. Santa's not coming this year because we're reviewing how we give out the toys and that. Halloween's not happening because we're reviewing how we what rules are for dressing up at Halloween. It's ridiculous. It's the exact same principles. Like, funding, it needs to continue or the work stops. And yeah, we need to, and everything you've said there sits within those principles. So there needs to be consistent messages coming from everybody around, but this just isn't good enough. An appreciation that, I think there's real benefits in match funding and whatever else, but there's got to be an appreciation of those timescales and how challenging it is and how that's then pushing a project back. So I'm on the same side as you, that resonate with everything that you're saying, and would welcome the opportunity for you to be involved in some of these conversations,
Any other questions?
Any help for North Lanarkshire?
Can you expand your question?
Where would you go if you were looking for help for funding and things like that for North Lanarkshire?
So your third sector interface, part of their role should be as a single point of access for guidance and advice about a whole range of things, one thing including funding. So in the south, you come to yourself, we've got staff based in different localities or they've got a different kind of thematic interest, and they'll be able to point you in the direction of, look, here's some funders lined up with what you're interested in, here's what support we can offer, here's what we can't offer, here's some opportunities to maybe get involved in some partnership or collaboration work. And like I said, we're a bit of a postcode lottery, different areas of the country, but I would like to think no matter what local authority you're in, if you knock the door of your TSI and you're a local grassroots organisation, try to do some good work, try to deliver services to make a difference in people's lives, that they would give you a wee puggy up and try and help you access some money,
Do you know where to go to for the equivalent of Vaslan in North Lanarkshire?
I don't know if you heard of Banniel.
Yeah, so that's the third sector interface. That's our equivalents in North, yeah.
Any other questions? Right, well, you're not getting off that easily because you were on the agenda, several questions came up on there about funding. So could you... Yes. Could you just share for a few minutes best practice? Because it clearly is, it came up so often that funding all sorts of activities is increasingly difficult.
What's the question?
Best practice.
Best practice for funding? Yeah. Well, we've got the experts in the room that are living it and breathing it now,
Well, there's where the questions have come from. Several have said it's become increasingly difficult.
Well, it is. I mean, that's like we said, there's never been more funders, strategically reviewing, or it's more competitive, So I think one of the answers is one of the things has just been really kind of what your USP is, because if you're going for grant funding or core funding somewhere, that it's never been more competitive. So what's different about you? How do you stand out from the crowd? And then there's got to be that diversification as well. As much as you like it or not, maybe reluctant to charge for services or whatever. If you want to survive at the same size and scale, you're going to have to be more enterprising. You're going to be willing to look at different things, democratic finance, social investment, a wider kind of portfolio of different activities, accepting that there might be things that you've done for a long time that they're brought to, but if they're no longer viable, then there needs to be that, either a bit of partnership in a local area or a bit of innovation to do something in a different way. It's really, really difficult. I think the public sector's view would be that there's too many charities. I fundamentally disagree. Because if you go to the high street, you should have a choice of what barber you go to, or what hairdresser you go to, or what local shop you go to get your crisps, or wherever you're wanting to get. I've got two wee girls. If one of my girls was waiting for a CAMHS appointment, and I knew it was going to be 2 years or whatever, I should legitimately have a choice. What kind of preventative, proactive children's charity support I want to put them to. I shouldn't just have one place to go. So we've got that challenge round about actually fundamentally what is the third sector, and it's grassroots up, and unless you're going to fund it at scale, it's no for you to control, and it probably isn't even at that case anyway. But for me, it would be about your USP, what's different about you, making sure that you've got the detailed budgets, you've got a compelling mission, you've got all the evaluation, you've got the case studies, but even then, sometimes in competitive stuff, it's not going to be enough. You've just got to put your best foot forward, look to diversify your income, engage with business. If you're fortunate that you're sitting on some reserves, there was a conversation at lunchtime about investment. I think that might be something even as soon as you've got more than 85k, you should have more than one bank account, depending on You know, for many that's no the case. And as soon as you've got, you know, over a percentage of your reserves policy that you know, right, we're not going to touch that this year based on our cash flow projection, you should be looking to invest it and get a bit back. Because your money's just sitting there doing nothing, and that might be something. So, look, but the experts are here in the room. You know, we're as a TSI, we're the ones helping the amazing folk then go away and do their thing. We don't do the direct delivery, you know, but we'll always try our best to help you, but we'll not be fraudsters either, you know, that we recognise that the skills and the expertise is actually the ones doing it and make the magic happen. We'll just try and guide you as best we can, but that would just be a couple of insights or reflections from my point of view.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed, Stephen.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Right, I promised I wouldn't go on, so I'm just going to hand over to our partner Colin Lumsden to close the event. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I've got the easy bit to do, just to let everybody free after all this. We just want to thank everybody for coming along. There's been a lot of work and effort went into organising the event, so thanks to everybody that was involved in that, and for everybody for turning up, because it's always a worry is how many people come in the room. If we really value feedback. You know, we're starting to do more events like this, wanting to try and push out and do more. So there's some feedback forms left on the chairs. It would be really appreciated if we could get some honest feedback on that, on how we might be able to make future events a bit better. Yeah, any suggestions or any questions anybody has, you'll have all our details. Everything's going to be sent out after the event, all the slides to everybody. We're available if anybody needs to speak to us or ask anything, please do. And again, thanks again to everybody involved and you all for coming along. You're free to go now and carry on. Thanks very much, guys.